Former President Donald Trump publicly slams President Joe Biden for his weakness before and during the Israeli attack. Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota is publicly chastised again for saying anti-Semitic comments on Twitter. And Arnold Schwarzenegger says the situation at the southern border is insane and President Biden must correct it immediately. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. So thank you so much. Also, don't miss my interview from earlier today where former CIA Larry Johnson came on to provide incredible intel on what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and Iran, and also this Israeli-Palestine crisis. I will link it at the end of this video. President Joe Biden has finally commented on the war in Israel, which started after the militant group Hamas launched a surprise missile attack. Biden called the attack on Israel pure, unadulterated evil and labeled Hamas a terrorist organization whose self-proclaimed purpose is to kill Jews. At the end of his heartfelt speech, Biden pledged to stand by Israel and provide funding for their defense. So far, at least 11 Americans have lost their lives in the Israeli attack, and many others are likely being held hostage. We still don't know the extent of how damaging this situation is. Former President Donald Trump blamed Biden for funding the attack, citing how he released $6 billion to Iran in a recent hostage exchange deal. Trump stated, "I predict war on Israel immediately after it was announced that Joe Biden gave $6 billion to Iran. They got so much money." Now, the Biden administration immediately pushed back against this claim, stating the funds have not been released yet and will only be used for humanitarian purposes. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has called on the Biden administration to again freeze these funds once more amid the attack, and that they should never be released because Iran has said that this won't be used for humanitarian aid. It will be used however Iran wants. So who do you trust more? Iran saying we're going to do whatever we want, or the Biden White House saying, no, they're only going to use it for good? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, unfortunately for President Biden, the botched Afghanistan withdrawal likely did contribute to part of this attack. According to a new report from Newsweek magazine, an Israeli commander claimed that weaponry from the abandoned U.S. Afghan base has already been observed in the hands of Palestinian groups in Gaza. Now, according to the Department of Defense, billions and billions of dollars in military equipment was left behind in Afghanistan following the withdrawal. With these details in mind, it is very likely that somehow Hamas was able to get their hands on U.S. military equipment. So sadly, the very equipment that we left behind has now been part of the attack on Israel. Now, speaking of Hamas, a very disturbing clip of their co-founder, Al-Zahar, has surfaced online. In the clip, Al-Zahar claimed that their main goal is to conquer the entire earth and eradicate Zionism and Christianity. Al-Zahar gave his rationale for this plan by stating, removing the Jews from the land they occupied in 1948 is an immutable principle because it appears in the Book of Allah. So this is turning into a religious holy war, which is terrible for religion, but even worse for humanity. Many are saying, hey, listen, the Jews in Israel have not treated the people in Palestine the best. That might be true, but they are not saying that they all need to be eradicated from the earth. So this is turning into an anti-Semitic, anti-Christian war, unfortunately. Now, Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, the House representative who's secretly married to her own brother, is being condemned by many members of Congress for her recent words about Jews killed in Israel. She tweeted that this should not be labeled a war crime, and the United States should stop assisting and funding Israel and instead diplomatically sue for peace. Now, this is a tough situation, and many people have differing opinions. Personally, I'm against killing of all kinds, but I witnessed with my own eyes Israel being attacked, and now close to 1,000 people have been killed. Not military people serving their country, but civilians having fun, children playing with their parents, people at a music concert. There are now hostages that face beheading for nothing that they've done, just bad blood between religions and government officials, and now they're at risk of losing their life. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has claimed that Vladimir Putin wants this war in the Middle East in order to advance his own agenda. Zelensky stated Russia is interested in triggering a war in the Middle East so that a new source of pain and suffering could undermine world unity, increase discord and contradiction, and thus help Russia destroy freedom in Europe. Now, I don't believe any of that, but that's what was said, and I wanted to share that with you. As talks of the Israeli war cloud the media, Zelensky is reportedly worried that America's focus will shift to Ukraine and he won't get money. Now, according to The Telegraph, President Biden is now considering only passing one more major funding package for Ukraine to the tune of an additional $100 billion of taxpayer money. If this type of bill passes, this would be the last funding Ukraine would see, likely until there's a new president in 2024. Now, to be fair, $100 billion would be more than enough to keep Ukraine funded, but it seems the Biden administration is starting to panic as the United States could find themselves on the verge of a two-front war, which would drain their resources and their money even faster. Now, I don't know whether you are for giving another $100 billion or against it. That's not for me to say. You can have your own opinion. But I will say it just adds to the national debt, and they don't have the weapons and the ammunition to send. So you can print as many greenbacks as you want, but it doesn't feed children and it doesn't buy bullets if there's none to buy. So that's where this becomes a real worry. Now, interestingly enough, U.S. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth just voiced a similar concern. During a U.S. Army press conference, Wormuth stated that the U.S. may not be able to supply munition to both Ukraine and Israel at the same time unless Congress approves additional funding for emergency production of weapons and munitions. Now, given the divide between Congress, one can only imagine that this is going to be a difficult uphill battle. Okay, back in America, RFK Jr. has just announced that he will leave the Democrat Party and become an independent. RFK Jr. explained his decision, stating, "Because I am an independent, the two political parties, I will be enabled to enact bold policies that are outside the partisan conversation." Now, just recently, RFK seemed to hint that this decision by responding to Hillary Clinton after she claimed that Make America Great voters are in need of formal deprogramming. RFK Jr. stated, "Democracy requires a broad sense of civic inclusion. Democracy is the rule of the people, but if we are at each other's throat, there is no the people." Do you think Kennedy's attempt to unite people under the independent party will work, or do you think he's wasting his time? Let me know your thoughts down below. Now, RFK Jr. has raised over $1 million in less than a couple of days since announcing he will leave the Democrat Party and take on Biden directly. Many have slandered his name, but now as an independent, he poses a real threat to Joe Biden's re-election campaign. And for this, the Democrats are furious. And so my guess is they're going to start pulling Donald Trump-like tactics in order to shame, embarrass, or push RFK Jr. out of the race. On the Republican side, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has just claimed that he can beat Donald Trump in the election. Vivek stated, "I have something that Trump doesn't. I'm from a different generation. I'm 38 years old. Yes, we are in the middle of a sort of war in this country, but I think it will take a commander-in-chief and a general who has not been wounded in that war. So basically he's saying it's time for a younger generation to come in with new ideas and new manners of doing things to get the United States to move forward again as a nation. Lastly, former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger slammed Biden's border policy, which is allowing close to 3 million unknown illegals to enter our country every year, probably more than that. He said it's time for serious immigration reform where people can come in legally and be put to work, but this idea of millions of undocumented, unknown people allowed to roam free in our country on government programs is insane. So he's now coming out and publicly condemning Joe Biden and the White House policy of allowing millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants to just come into the country with no vetting, no plan, no sponsor, no job, no nothing, right? And that then they're just given free legal counsel, cell phone, 3 meals a day, posh hotels in New York. Meanwhile, they're getting more money per month than our hardworking senior citizens get on Social Security. So I'm glad Schwarzenegger, although I don't agree with him on everything, has finally come out publicly and said something has got to change. Now, before you go, I want to remind you that you are amazing. Never, never, never forget that. I just like to remind you every day because, man, this life can really beat us up. There's a lot going on. Now, before you go, please give this video a like. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1.4 million subscribers, and I want you in my community. Check out this video from earlier today where CIA Larry Johnson goes into some deep intel that really helped me better understand the situation. Also, check out this video. Hey, thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next video.